We will record the meeting. So welcome to the IDIS second webinar. Today we will have the second roundtable with again an eminent guest and the moderator, Mr. Jovan Vujasinovic, will guide us through the topic which probably he will present. So not to lose too much time, I invite you to the active participation. Please use our chat to put the questions in, and I hope we will all have an interesting discussion over the course of the next hour. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Belec. Greetings to everybody. Welcome to our second webinar. As some of you might know, the previous year marked the 10th anniversary of the IDIS Association. The idea that sparked the formation of the association was equal opportunity, helping small and medium utilities with the process of rollouts. Big utilities may be able to afford to do it all by themselves. However, smaller ones don't always have that luxury. Throughout this decade, the association developed free packages for smart metering that should help with challenges that come with massive rollouts. In this webinar, we are going to cover the theory behind massive rollouts, but also discuss the application of that theory in practice. And this discussion will help us to check the first conclusion from our previous webinar, which I will remind you of. The widely adopted DLMS COSEM standard already enables some degree of interoperability. Now, a universal companion specification is needed to ensure true interoperability, meaning interchangeability, and development of additional services such as smart cities. Such universal companion specification should be a set of several basic specifications and use cases that can be easily adapted to the specific needs of each country and each specific smart metering project. It is the closest companion specification to achieve that. So it was first conclusion from our previous webinar. And now please welcome our guest, Mr. Joran Mojlans, technical lead for the smart meter rollout at Fluvius, Mr. Marko Mišmaš, G3 PLC Alliance Strategic Steering Committee member, and Mr. Nenad Međeral, Chairman of the Technical Board of the IDIS Association. Thank you for joining us today.
Same from my side.
I will now start with questions for our guests. I would like to encourage the audience to ask questions during the webinar in the comment section of the Zoom. So first question, what do you think, how can utilities make a decision when choosing a technology and be sure that they made the right choice? Joran, Fluvius is currently doing a serious massive rollout in all of Flanders, and you and your team were in charge of picking and deciding on the best solution for your company. During my visit to Fluvius, I was impressed with your deep knowledge and experience based on real cost-benefit analysis. So you are very qualified to discuss about this issue, and please give us your opinion first.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting, first of all. Well, first of all, choosing a technology and more in particular a communication technology is for me the hardest part in smart metering. Once you have chosen your communication technology, there's no way back for more than a decade. At least if you don't want to send technicians on site to change communication equipment. That's an important one. Choosing communication technology is not something that can be done overnight. For me, there are a few criteria that needs to be fulfilled by the chosen communication technology. And first of all, the communication technology should fit in the bigger picture. With that, I mean it should match your use cases. For example, do you need real-time communication for some use cases? Do you need fast interaction, or is it sufficient to gather data once a day, for example? So that's one criteria. The second criteria, and maybe the most important one, is that you choose a communication technology that is proven and does have the a chance of getting, or not a chance to have getting obsolete or not supported anymore before your meter is end of life. That's also an important one. And if you are doing a slow rollout over several years, so not a big bang over a few years, then you should re-evaluate the technology choice every couple of years to keep up the speed of the evolutions of the communication technology. And then the third criteria is that the technology should be cheap, cheap and with as less as possible maintenance. Most countries introduce smart meters to support the energy transition, and it should save the consumer money at the end, and not introduce new costs. So cost is also a very important factor in this. So that were my my things I would like to share with you guys.
Okay, Joren, thank you. Nenad, do you have to add something on this issue?
At the beginning, thank you for inviting me for the panel. I think Joran explained quite well how technology should be selected, and I think that heavily depends on the utility organization, then environment where the metering points are located, which kind of technology will be used there, and of course over the long time it's total cost of ownership of the communication technology. There are elements Joran already mentioned. It's maintenance which goes in, its operational cost, involvement of technology, and so on. I think that there is no unique recipe or that we can give advantage of one single technology compared to another. If use cases is such that you do not real time, you can go with the technologies supporting the lower bandwidth, which has impact on the low. It comes with the lower cost, and maybe your business case is better, and it suffices to implementation. If the amount of the data to be transferred is high, then definitely should be selected another technology in that case. So, and I think was in the Joran's explanation very well summarized what are these key elements which should be analyzed before the technology is selected.
Okay, thank you, Nenad. Marko.
Thank you, Johan. Basically, Nenad and Maren already explained most of the, let's say, important points how to select the technology. I see this, let's say, utilities need to take really into the account 4 aspects basically already presented. So the first one is what kind of use cases needs to be covered. The lifetime of technology would be the second one. Technology abilities, and from the business point, the total cost of ownership of the solution over the lifetime. I would add really to that it's not the important just the use cases, today's use cases, what we see, what we need to fulfill, but also the use cases which will come in the future, because the lifetime of the installed meter is not 1-2 years, but it's let's say decade and more, 15-20 years. And we need to predict today how the grid will evolve, and to choose correct technology to not to hit the wall after the 10 years.
Okay, Marko. G3 PLC has launched solution with the parallel use of 2 communication technologies. And in addition, you have over 15 years in the telecommunication industry. which is an invaluable experience given how much telecommunications are entered in the metering area. So I want to address first to you next question. If the trend of using two communication infrastructures is followed, the utility has three options: to create two of its one, to create one of its one and rent the other, or to rent both. How much do you think this decision depends on the size of the utility?
I think the decision does not depend really from the size of the utilities, but how competent they are in the field of communications. For instance, G3PLC is used by big utilities, like here they have deployed already close to 30 million meters, and also used by the small ones. For instance, in Switzerland, many utilities are using G3PLC. The hybrid version of the G3PLC specification is offering dual communication capabilities or own network. I'm quite sure that a lot of utilities will decide for that regardless of the size. If the utilities does not have the communication competences, I think it's the best way to rent the data transfer, because everybody should work in the field where they are competent, and if they're lacking the competence, then let's say renting the data transfer is the best option.
Okay, Joran, what do you think?
Well, I agree on that, but basically I would like to post first a question or a remark, because I think before introducing two communication infrastructures, the utility should make a strategic choice. The main reason for introducing two communication infrastructures is the need, or let's say the choice, to have 100% coverage. The utility should be well aware of the fact that the last percentages are the most costly to achieve. So yeah, you can have, let's say, 100% of smart meter rollout, but do you really need 100% of offering the smart services on these meters to the customers? That's the question that you need first need to make. So if that answer to that question is yes, okay, then I think you only have the option to have two communication infrastructures in place, because you cannot cover everything with one communication infrastructure. That's something that is known. But yeah, if you choose for two communication infrastructures, I would recommend that you to own one, or to rent the other, or to rent both, based on indeed the like Marco already said. Yeah, where is your level of experience, and where is your core business? At Fluvius, yeah, maybe something about Fluvius later, but the philosophy should be that one communication infrastructure is the main and preferably the cheapest one, where you roll out, let's say, 98% with. And the other one is the more expensive one, and that is just used for closing the gap. Closing the gap, so from 92% to 100%. That's what, according to us, the philosophy should be. Well, at Fluvius, we made the choice to not have the ambition to reach 100% of smart services on all meters. We are doing a 100% rollout, but we have the expectations or the ambition to have at least 97 to 98% of smart service over the meter park available, meaning that we don't need that expensive second technology. So that's maybe a change in mind, and that's a decision that the utility should make. All comes to cost.
Yeah. Okay, interesting point. The utility need 100% of
Yeah, of communication services. Rollout is one thing, communication services or guaranteeing 100%, that's another one.
Yes, but especially if we take care that in the future the utility will have a lot of customers with renewables or electric vehicle chargers. So then the question, would utility have a need for faster communication and real-time data? Okay, Nenad, do you have to add something on this issue?
Yeah, I will just continue where my predecessors stopped and emphasize the point Marco said. I think that does not depend on the size of utility, but more on again on the network utility has and what are appropriate communications technologies for the utilities. Then the maybe one sub question or I see two cases here. The one case is if idea is to use these communication technologies in parallel to achieve, as Joran said, 100% of readings, or if one channel goes down, that you have utility have opportunity to read the data from another channel, or the case where, let's say, one technology cannot reach the metering point, and then another technology should be used there. And then, of course, it comes back to the first question we already discussed, how to select the technology. Then even in that case, with the two communication technologies used or infrastructures used, we come to the basic questions: what is needed? Then the knowledge you should have to operate the technologies, and so on. So I really don't see a link with the size of utility there, and you know, the question: are utilities are going to create own infrastructure or not? I think that depends really on the utilities know-how and utilities business case there.
Okay, so we can conclude that first decision regarding a massive rollout for utility is to choose communication technology and to decide will it create its own telecommunications infrastructure or rent an existing one. But I want to highlight one I think also very important topic which we see in practice, that if utility chooses to create its own network, it is necessary to provide staff to maintain it, and that every technology requires a cleanup in some form. Even when renting infrastructure, cleanup is required, but with less activity. So utility can do cleanup itself or also outsource it. So I want to address next question to Joran. What are the main reasons that the utilities should choose to outsource the cleanup process and data collection? And what are the advantages of either solution?
Thank you, Johan. Maybe first something about the data collection. In my opinion, the knowledge of the assets and its internal working of the smart meter is important for a utility. At the end, they are responsible for the correct working of their assets. So that's one point. And actually, this comes to insights in specifications and the collection system. Operating the assets is another thing, in my opinion. In my opinion, that can be partially outsourced. The big advantage in this is that the utility can focus on the real value of the smart meters, namely the data that comes out. Collecting data is one thing, and that's something you can outsource, in my opinion. Doing something useful for its customers and the public society is another thing. So by outsourcing the data collection and paying per received data point, the utility can limit the risk that expenses for collecting data are derailing. And that you can predict what your operational costs will be at the end concerning data collection. Concerning the cleanup process, I'm a bit allergic for that word or that thing. My advice is that in the selection of a technology, in a selection of communication technology, that you keep this in mind. So please choose a technology that requires as less as possible cleanup. And cleanup requires indeed interventions in the grid or on the meter itself. And in my opinion, this cannot be fully outsourced because maintaining the assets in the grid is the core business of the utility. You can not fully outsource it, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Oren. Nenad.
That's from my perspective. Outsourcing a rollout, as said, that depends on utility, how utility sees that case. Definitely, when it comes to clean up, that should be staff, user staff, which is familiar with the communication technologies and how to find issues and resolve these issues. Cleanup process is a kind of expensive process in the field, and that should be, I would say, minimalistic, or technology should be so mature and used that does not have, that the issues coming during rollout are not coming from technology itself. Then what can prevent the extensive cleanups and the issues during the rollout? It is about the planning, knowing technology, knowing about the blind spots there for that communication technology that somehow can be prepared in advance. Even some functionalities which are offered by device can be inside device to make this process easier and running smooth, and to reduce the cleanup later. But of course, that depends, all the process about rolling out devices and so on depends also the way how utility operates. And then on the end, if to go to the managed services, I think you provided a quite good explanation there that gives utility opportunity to operate with the known cost of reading service. And then I would say the running complete data collection is somewhere, let's call it, invisible under the quotes for utility.
Okay. Okay, Marco, would you add something on this issue?
I think that the mission of the utilities is to provide really the stable and reliable energy supply towards their customers, and this is their expertise. They are very competent in that. And today's communications, for instance, are complex, very, very complex, and the let's say that competences has let's say vendors or let's say suppliers who are dealing with that, telecom operators, and let's say with that view, if utilities are lacking the competences in communications and data collection, let the experts do the job and outsource those tasks to them.
Okay. So very clear for you.
Yeah, because with the view, if you want to be successful in the business, you must be expert in that. This is the first, let's say, precondition. Otherwise, you cannot successfully do the job.
Okay.
Yeah, that's maybe I can just add to comment to Marcos. It's what we can see today. You know, if we are just looking to AMI system, the middle part, which is a networking and communication, we have a lot of new players there which are coming. With the mobile technologies, we have a network providers. With some other technologies, another providers. So, and then, as said, utilities are about delivering readings to customer and billing a customer and doing that stable and provided about the provided energy. But then that part, there are companies which can do that really. It's their core business. So they can do it in the cheapest way and the best way.
Yeah. Okay, so we see in the past on many rollouts that cleanup is very complex process. So we can conclude that for utility, it is more easily to outsource that to experts. Okay. Nenad, you have been a member of the technical board since the very foundation of the IDIS Association. And you and your team are responsible for the creation of companion specifications and certification programs. So with this excellent qualification and large experience, I want to address you next question. In your opinion, is it necessary for all the functionalities used during a massive rollout to be defined by the appropriate specification and confirmed by the appropriate certification program?
I think I slightly touched that in previous answer. The process, the commissioning process depends on the utilities or how utilities are running their process. We also can see in some countries that this part is somehow defined, specified, and specified by regulators or the biggest players in the market or biggest utilities. So coming there with the unified process and specification, I think that would take a time and to harmonize or find what are the common points to solve that, to address the topic. Yes, the certification. Then if we would come to the common process, then and specification, then it makes sense to set up kind of certification against that process there. I believe in some markets that's already done by regulators, and when devices are, before they are delivered, this part is tested, or with some I know with some bigger utilities they are doing such verification if the process is running according to specification, their specific specification. So definitely having that process well specified, the way to verify if the devices can follow that process and functionality is there, that would help and improve the rollouts and installation of devices.
Okay, Nenad. Marco, would you add something? Marco.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes.
I think for massive rollouts, utilities typically do not rely just on one supplier. Really, to achieve interoperabilities on the interfaces between different suppliers, they need to have implementation. All the suppliers need to have implementation done by standards and certified by the appropriate certification program. For the specific functions just let's say on those rollouts, I think in addition to that, the lab interoperability test must be done. Then first massive pilot operation, and after these preconditions and let's say all the confirmed functionalities, then the massive rollout can start.
Okay. Joren, what is your experience? What is the importance of standardization?
Standardization is really important. I'm a strong believer of standardization and open solutions. Fluvius is also. And this makes the life easier for everyone. Not only the utility will benefit from it, but also the suppliers. Indeed, in a dual source, let's say, vending strategy. On the other hand, sometimes, and it's already said before, the utility needs additional or specific use cases that require additions or even sometimes deviation from standardized products, and that's mostly driven by legislation. If you compare the Netherlands with for example, the Belgian market, and in the Netherlands they don't have a breaker. We have a breaker in the Belgian market, so there are some, let's say, differences. But if you use the standardized open solutions, you get the least chance to end up with a vendor lock-in or interoperability problems of the meters and the solution. But indeed, a standard is not sufficient. You also need a certification label to be sure that the product implements the standard in an appropriate way. And like already said, the country specific or the utility specific part is the hardest part in that. So you will get the certification for a standardized product. That's fine. But what with the extras defined by the DSO itself, you really need a good testing and certification also for it, because in the most cases, it's most likely that in this part there are the bugs and the deviations. So that's my advice is keep it as standard as possible. Keep it rely on standards. Do not develop, and especially not as a small utility, do not develop your own specifications from the ground, and try to avoid deviations from some kind of standardized product like an IDIS meter, for example. So that's my advice and my feeling by this.
Okay, thank you, Joren. So maybe we can then conclude that utilities should use international standards and certified products, and add that this is the only way to prevent vendor lock-in or ending up with an obsolete system in the case of a manufacturer that no longer supports a specific technology or country. And interchangeability is also a very big advantage when one supplier is faced with logistic problems. And we discussed in the first part of webinar about a solution with two communication technologies. So I want to ask Marko, in your opinion, which standards or companion specification with certification program guarantee interoperability and interchangeability in the field when two communication technologies are used?
Currently, currently there is, let's say, just on the up to third level of OSI model, there is just one specification who is covering and one certification program who is covering two communication technologies. This is G3 PLC Alliance hybrid specification, which is also backward compatible, so hybrid PLC and RF communication. And it's also backward compatible with just the G3 PLC specification. So this allows let's say the customers, the utilities, to use let's say PLC and RF from the, let's say, coverage point of view, how to easily achieve the coverage in the first step, 100% coverage of all devices. There is also another aspect I wanted to add to the, let's say, question we already had on the table. Dual communication can be used also for being, let's say, more proof, investment proof for the future use cases and the future needs. So if you implement one type of the communications into your network, and you have ability to just add step by step, let's say, additional communication interface to your smart meters, to be able and to be, let's say, investment secure, that you can cover in the future also the use cases which are coming to the smart grid. If we come back to the let's say standardization from the up to third level, there is just one specification. So this is G3 PLC. But if we go higher to be really on the higher levels, to be really interoperable, you need to have let's say ends on the all communication layers. So there is a COSEM DLMS specification on the application layer and DLMS certification program, and at the end, the IDIS specification is crucial to be interoperable on the data layer.
Okay, thank you, Marko. Joren, what do you think in Fluvius you implement rollout with using mobile telecommunications, narrowband IoT? Do you see in the future adding second technology, and what, example, PLC or what, and how do you see standardization of that?
Yeah. First of all, like already said, we have now one communication channel. Adding a second communication channel, that's indeed for closing the gap or more specific cases to reach 100%. So within Fluvius, we don't think about integrating two communication stacks in 1 meter because it's also a bit cost driven. You need maybe two modems of two let's say 2 stacks, which makes the base model, let's put it that way, expensive. So if we introduce a second technology, and then we will do it as a separate meter, we think, due to the fact that we have a base model which is cheap, uses cheap communication, and we put that in most cases, and for closing the gap we put maybe a second meter, a second technology in place. To avoid that we have if we put it all in 1 meter, then we have the second stack not used or not using in 98% of the cases. So that's a bit, you need to make the cost benefit of that. That's first of all. what I think about specification and certification with two communication technology, if you choose for a meter that has two communication technologies on board, I think indeed the standardization should be on the application level. The application level or the interaction with your meter should be agnostic from the communication technology that is used. That's my opinion on that, and IDIS, or the IDIS certification is helping on that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Joren. Okay, Nenad, we hear from Marco solution RF and PLC. So also we heard from Joren that maybe in the future they will need a combination mobile telephony and PLC example. So can utility use IDIS specification and certification programs for that application in which two communication technologies are used?
At the beginning, I will shortly say yes, because IDIS specification from very beginning is structured in that way that's communication agnostic. So it covers the application layer. That means, as mentioned before, the data model and data view, which is very important for utility and the data collection, that all metering points or meters are seen from that level identical or same. So, and communication is just mechanism how we transport the data from one point to another. And IDIS specification, starting with the package 2, it's open to any type of IP-based communication. That means, as we heard, G3 PLC Alliance is coming out with a hybrid solution. That hybrid solution can be easily integrated in the IDIS specification as additional communication profile. G3 PLC is already covered. That means RF part with configuration objects should be added to the specification, and the certification process itself and testing is easy expandable in that sense. So it's possible to certify even today if we would have a solution with the dual communication, which is already available in the IDIS specification. If we would have such product, it can be certified. That means by communication technology.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, and I'm expecting in future that also IDIS will evolve in that part. So when we get the needs or indication which communication profile is of high interest for the market, it can be added to specification.
Okay, we can generally say that IDIS specifications are created to be independent from communication channels, and that emphasis is on the precise specification of the application level, so it can be easily adapted for use of more communication technologies. And for the end, to explain covering all user-specific functions. So all of us know that IDIS have a few packages and certification program and specification for a lot of functions, but each country has some specific requirements. And to cover all that user-specific requirement utility has three options to do that together with the IDIS Association, or with its own resources, or with external consultants. Nenad, what do you think this decision depends on, and what do you recommend to utilities?
I think, you know, that either IDIS Association or either consultants are not exclusive. That can be also a combination, depends. It heavily depends on the know-how utility has in-house. So it can be also model that utility starts with the consultants, and consultants then select what the best specification is for that utility case and engage IDIS in that work, IDIS Association in that work. Or if we have already defined model in IDIS Association, if there is exists organization which covers more utilities, or is utility organization, or the country organization which represents utilities, then that organization can directly approach IDIS Association and trigger the country specific work on for country specific extension for IDIS specification. These are current models. Maybe Göran can comment. I think the Fluvius went with some external consulting, and then IDIS Association was also engaged.
Yeah, indeed. Maybe I can add something.
Please,
if you are ready. So indeed, for me, basically the same like Nenad said. For me, it depends on a few things. Either do it by yourself or fully outsource it, or some hybrid solution. It depends on the size of utility, the internal knowledge of the utility, and the amount of resources. And that's an important one that the utility can spend on this project. For me, external consultants are good for utilities with limited knowledge of smart metering, and for me that's the first step of insourcing the knowledge. So external consultants are good from this for making the start, but it's not sustainable. At least for reviews, it's not to have it on a long term. So you need to find a way to insource some knowledge, and that can be done with external consults. Then, concerning the depth of the insourced knowledge, that's a strategic decision, and it's linked to the next step. Either you create the specification and certification programs by yourself, like big utilities do, or you say, no, we are not creating our specifications and certification programs itself. We rely on a standardization organization like IDIS, and we work together with them. Then, for me, a utility can have less knowledge or less in-depth knowledge. So it's a hybrid solution for me. So yeah, it should be done together, in my opinion, with the standards. For Fluvius, we did it. We did it together with the standardization organization of IDIS, and yeah, that also gives you as utility the best chance that your country-specific extensions will be taken up in the next evolution of the standard itself. And this is the approach that we as Fluvius are following, and we think that that's a beneficial approach. An attention point is that you need, you should have, it should be collaborative. So between the standardization organization and the utility, it's not, you cannot say, okay, IDIS, work this out for me, because you have the knowledge of the use case, the specific use case. So it should be done in collaboration. That's an important one.
Okay. Marco, would you add something?
I would say I fully agree with my colleagues. Really, IDIS is a good base. It's a good base, and with the combination, but it's not covering all the local needs and all the local legislation also. I think it's with that good base plus external consultant who knows all the use case and all the specifics of the end user, this combination can definitely bring a good result.
Okay, so we can conclude that it is very important to do everything in coordination with the IDIS Association and approved on their side to synchronize all specifications. And maybe it is interesting to say that in case of Fluvius, set of newly defined functions that are generally common included in the IDIS specification and added in the IDIS certification program. The rest of functions which are connected only on region of Belgium become country-specific specification. And generally, we can conclude that everything, even the country-specific functionalities, should be tested, analyzed, and studied in great details. So
maybe I can add one thing extra on your comments. Yeah. So indeed, in what concerns Fluvius, we have our own, let's say, Fluvius. Fluvius country-specific extension. So we are a DSO. So it's really important that as a country you gather utilities and try to get to a country-specific extension that can indeed be taken up in IDIS, because it's not possible that DSO specific extensions are put in IDIS. It's always a country, as I see it.
Yeah. Okay. So we discuss an excellent topic today, and maybe few main conclusions. The choice of technology depends on many things. To make a decision, you need to analyze everything, both the reliability of the technology as well as the cost effectiveness. And no network alone can ensure 100% communication success. So it makes the most sense to have two technologies. And the application of standard and certification programs are very important. And IDIS Association provides both global and country-specific solution for interchangeability and interoperability for small and medium utilities. At the end, thanks to Mr. Mishmash, Mr. Medgerel, and Mr. Mollens, thanks to Mr. Bellet, thanks to audience, and let's shape the future together.
Yes.
Thank you, Johan, for this very nice discussion. I think we opened quite some interesting topics and also find some answers to those topics. So I think we will use some of the answers for the future. So let's keep us posted, yeah. And for the panelists, I agree with Johan that thank you, and as always, your comments and thoughts are very important for us. Thank you.
Come.